2002 Star Fox Adventures for the GameCube was sort of a love-hate kind of game. Sure, it was Star Fox, Nintendo's heroic space pilot once again saving the day, but the aerial combat roots of the series were sort of absent in favor of sort of like straight action adventure. For those hoping for a straight-up sequel to the well-liked Star Fox 64, this was kind of a disappointment, despite Adventure's overall quality. Now Nintendo's releasing another cube-based Star Fox game in Starfox Assault. This is developed by Namco, and it's definitely an attempt to placate the masses of Star Fox fans who just wanted to hop in an R-Wing and shoot up some bad guys. Unfortunately, the game doesn't always quite manage to accomplish this task, but when it does work, Assault can be a lot of fun. If you've ever played any Star Fox game ever made, you pretty much know what to expect from Assault's setup. Corneria is once again in peril, and you, as Fox McCloud, along with his ragtag bunch of animal comrades, have to save the day once again. This new threat comes in the form of this race of weird alien bug things called Aporoids. They're sort of like the aliens from Starship Troopers and the Borg from Star Trek, because they assimilate stuff and they're all evil and nasty and blah. However, despite the fact that you're kind of trade out these Aporoids instead of Andross's evil army, it's kind of still the same game. You're still blasting a lot of enemy ships and enemies and what have you. You're still trading little clever quips with your fellow pilots and fighting a lot of bosses, and then you get to the end and that's that. The airborne combat in Assault is straight out of Star Fox 64, and that is a good thing. It's not a bad thing in any way. It might seem like kind of a rehash when you're looking at it, but it actually plays brilliantly. It's simplistic, on-rails shooting fun. You're going around, blasting a lot of ships. You'll have the sort of melee missions where you'll have to shoot down specific ships. And it's just like Star Fox 64, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. The problem is that Assault is only about half aerial combat. The other half of the game is ground-based combat, and that's where the game kind of trips itself up. When you get into third-person combat, it's basically like highly stripped-down third-person shooter mechanics. Some little weapon upgrades here and there, like machine guns, rocket launchers, what have you. And like the aerial battles, you'll encounter all sorts of weird little grunt enemies. You'll fight bosses, etc. Unfortunately, unlike the aerial combat, these sections just aren't a lot of fun. The biggest combat is that Fox himself just doesn't handle very well. He moves quickly enough, but trying to turn him around, kind of spin around, trying to aim at an enemy, or even just trying to maintain any sort of like aim lock at all is just too frustrating. The one kind of neat thing about the ground missions is that you aren't totally relegated just like controlling Fox on foot. You can actually access like a tank as well as the air wing on the fly. You probably won't use the air wing a whole lot except for when you kind of have to rescue your buddies who are flying around and getting chased by bad guys. You will use the tank a fair amount, mainly because it's a lot more powerful than you just kind of running around on foot. Unfortunately, the shooting mechanics of the tank aren't that great. They're not very satisfying. Thing moves real slow, and it's just kind of clunky. The story mode itself is only about 6 hours long, and beyond that, there's not a whole lot else to the package to really keep you involved. There is the sort of like the Star Fox 64 methodology where you kind of go back, you can play the levels over again, and earn special medals, play on higher difficulties, try to get a higher score, that kind of stuff. And the incentive is there. You'll probably want to go back and do that. There's also a multiplayer component to the game that just doesn't really ever take off. There's no real major appeal to it. It's just real stripped-down team-based combat or deathmatch combat for 1 to 4 or 2 to 4 players. You can kind of involve the vehicles here and there, but it's too easy to lose people on the maps. It just feels kind of repetitive and dumb. It's just like there's just not a lot to the multiplayer, which is weird because actually when this game was announced, it's supposed to be a multiplayer-only game. Seems like they kind of just sort of abandoned the multiplayer at some point, said, all right, we need a single-player mission, and then they just kind of forgot about it when it came time to release the game. The game does present itself pretty nicely. The graphics are pretty great overall. The space battles look awesome. There's rarely any frame rate problems or anything like that. You'll notice some occasionally nasty textures here and there, but for the most part, the game runs at a nice clip and looks real pretty while doing it. Namco has done a great job of recapturing the sort of simplistic fun of Star Fox 64's aerial battles, but the game is just peppered too much with unspectacular ground combat to balance out the experience, and the lack of true lasting value is a definite hindrance. While Namco can hardly be blamed for not wanting to just remake Star Fox 64 verbatim, it seems as though the game probably would have benefited much more from just being a space combat game rather than an uneven mishmash of great space combat and mediocre ground combat. In the end, you should play Star Fox Assault if you have any affinity for the series whatsoever. Just be prepared to sift through some problems to get to the enjoyable parts.